According to IBLP, humility means, without God's help, my achievements would not have been possible. But when Joseph committed an unthinkable act against a 9-year-old, where was this humility? We have to ask ourselves, does this teaching actually silence the vulnerable while protecting the dangerous individuals hiding behind closed doors? What happens when a word meant to represent grace and modesty is weaponized to cover up the most severe mistreatment imaginable? Stick around, because what you are about to hear is going to completely shatter the wholesome image of reality TV's most famous religious family. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are diving deep into one of the darkest, most disturbing contradictions in modern reality television and religious fundamentalism. We are pulling back the curtain on the Institute in Basic Life Principles, better known as IBLP, the Duggar family, and a twisted definition of humility that has deeply affected countless lives. If you are new here, we analyze the hidden reality behind reality TV, expose extreme high-control behaviors, and advocate for survivors of mistreatment. If you believe in holding powerful people accountable, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss our future investigations. Let's get into it. To truly understand the gravity of what is happening today, we have to look at the people pulling the strings. For over a decade, the Duggar family was the crown jewel of the TLC network. With 19 kids and counting, they presented a pristine, untouchable image of wholesome traditional values. They didn't date, they courted. They didn't dress like the rest of the world, they wore modest clothing. And they certainly didn't live by the world's rules. They lived by the teachings of the Institute in Basic Life Principles, founded by a man named Bill Gothard. For the millions of viewers watching at home, the Duggars were quirky but harmless. But what the cameras didn't show was the intense, rigid, and ultimately dangerous theology operating behind the scenes. This wasn't just a strict church. This was a high-control group that dictated every single aspect of a person's life, from how they wore their hair to how they processed severe emotional pain. Why should you care about a reality TV family's bizarre religious beliefs? Because these beliefs aren't just confined to the television screen. They impact real people, real children, and they create environments where those who intend harm can thrive in plain sight. At the absolute core of IBLP's teachings is the concept of authority and submission. They use a visual called the umbrella of authority. Imagine a physical umbrella. Under the umbrella, you are safe from life's storms. God is at the top, followed by the husband, the wife, and, finally, the children at the very bottom. If you step out from under the umbrella, say by questioning a harmful older brother or a father's decision, you are opening yourself up to spiritual ruin. Now, think about that for a second. What would you have done if you were a child trapped inside that system? If you were told that speaking up about being mistreated meant you were rebelling against God himself? This brings us to a pivotal moment. On March 26, 2026, Michelle Duggar offered public advice on the concept of humility. She leaned heavily into the official IBLP definition. If you go to the official IBLP website right now, their humility page defines it exactly like this: recognizing that without God's help, my achievements would not have been possible. It sounds beautiful on the surface, right? It sounds like exactly what a good, faithful person should strive for. But here is where the facade crumbles, and the horrifying reality bleeds through. We need to contrast this beautiful definition of humility with the absolute darkness happening behind the closed doors of the Duggar home. We all know the dark history of Josh Duggar, the golden boy who was caught harming his own sisters, only to have it swept under the rug by his parents and the church elders. But the nightmare didn't stop with Josh. The recent, deeply disturbing revelations surrounding Joseph Duggar, crossing unforgivable boundaries with a 9-year-old, have ripped the mask entirely off the IBLP establishment. Let that sink in. A 9-year-old child. When this horrific incident occurred, where was the humility? Where was the recognition of God's grace? According to IBLP, true humility means acknowledging your absolute dependence on God. But in practice, within the walls of these high-control homes, humility is actually code for absolute submission to male authority. It means keeping quiet. It means not embarrassing the family. It means protecting the brand at all costs, even if the cost is the safety and innocence of a little child. This is the part that truly shocked everyone who has dug into the IBLP manuals. They have 7 basic life principles. One of them is the principle of authority. They teach that God works through authority figures, no matter how flawed or harmful they might be. So, when an older brother like Josh or Joseph commits an unspeakable act against a younger, vulnerable individual, the institutional response isn't to call the authorities. The response is to handle it in-house. Why? Because calling the police would be a failure to submit to the father's authority. It would show a lack of humility. Do you see how twisted this is? Do you think the leaders of IBLP actually believe they are doing God's work? Or do you think they knowingly designed a system to protect powerful men? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because I am genuinely baffled by how long they got away with this. The true bombshell here isn't just that harm happened. Tragically, bad things happens everywhere. The absolute bombshell is that the theology of IBLP was perfectly engineered to silence the victims and protect the wrongdoers. When Josh's initial mistreatment of his sisters was discovered in the early 2000s, Jim Bob and Michelle didn't immediately rush to law enforcement. They sent him to a counseling program run by IBLP. They relied on Bill Gothard's methods. And what did those methods teach the victims? Former members have come forward in recent years, especially on popular investigative podcasts and in explosive documentaries, detailing how victims of mistreatment in this extreme groups are treated. According to survivors, if you are harmed in IBLP, the leadership often turns it back around to you. They ask what you were wearing. They ask if you had a rebellious spirit. They ask if you stepped out from under the umbrella of authority. They literally demand that the victim show humility by forgiving the perpetrator instantly and never speaking of it again. And we are seeing this exact same pattern repeat with Joseph. Michelle Duggar stands up in 2026 preaching about humility and the grace of God, while her own sons have left a trail of shattered lives in their wake. It's not just hypocrisy, it is a calculated, systemic cover-up wrapped in a Bible verse. The fallout from these continuous scandals has been catastrophic, not just for the Duggars, but for IBLP as an organization. When Josh Duggar was finally sentenced to over a decade in a federal facility for receiving and possessing highly illegal and prohibited digital materials, the world thought the Duggars had hit rock bottom. But the allegations against Joseph proved that the rot in this family wasn't just a one-off issue with Josh, it was systemic. The public media response has been relentless. Major outlets like Radar Online have launched deep-dive investigations into the inner workings of IBLP. The public outrage has been deafening, and rightfully so. Social media exploded with thousands of former fundamentalist Christians sharing their own horror stories, using hashtags that expose the dark underbelly of purity culture and unquestioned obedience. But imagine being a member of that family right now. Imagine being one of the sisters, or one of the spouses, who has been deeply conditioned from birth to believe that speaking out against your family will literally send you to ruin. The psychological trap they are in is almost impossible for us on the outside to comprehend. When we step back and look at the bigger picture, this isn't just about the Duggars. This is a masterclass in psychological control and spiritual manipulation. Experts on high-demand groups have long warned about organizations that redefine standard vocabulary. By taking a universally positive word like humility and twisting it to mean blind obedience and silence, IBLP stripped its followers of their ability to even articulate their own oppression. In my opinion, this is the most insidious form of manipulation. When a dangerous person poses an immediate physical threat, you know you are being attacked. But when someone uses your own faith against you, when they tell you that your pain is just a test of your humility, it breaks your mind. It makes you complicit in your own silence. We've seen this pattern in so many other extreme religious sects. The wrongdoer is protected by the hierarchy, the victims are shamed into silence, and the leaders continue to profit off their wholesome image. So where do things stand right now? The battle is far from over. Today, the IBLP is desperately trying to rebrand. They are attempting to distance themselves from the Duggars and from Bill Gothard, who faced his own mountain of severe personal misconduct allegations. But you can't just slap a new coat of paint on a condemned house. Over the next few months, we are going to see more legal developments regarding the allegations against Joseph. We are also seeing a massive wave of survivors finding their voices. Documentaries, podcasts, and memoirs are systematically tearing down the umbrella of authority. What you need to watch for in the coming year is how lawmakers respond. There is a growing movement to close the loopholes that allow these high-control groups to hide the mistreatment of minors under the guise of religious freedom or in-house discipline. To wrap all of this up, let's go back to that quote from Michelle Duggar. "Without God's help, my achievements would not have been possible." True humility is about recognizing your flaws. It's about honesty. It's about being brave enough to tell the truth, even when it destroys your reputation. The Duggars and IBLP do not practice humility. They practice PR. They practice damage control. They built an empire on a foundation of lies, and now the weight of those lies is bringing the whole thing crashing down. The real display humility isn't coming from Jim Bob or Michelle or the leadership of IBLP. The real humility and the real bravery is coming from the victims who are finally standing up, facing those who wronged them and saying, "No more." Thank you so much for watching. Cases like this are heavy, but shining a light on them is the only way we can stop these cycles of harm. If you found this video eye-opening, please hit the like button and make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss our next investigation. Now, I have a very important question for you, and I want you to be honest in the comments. Were you ever in IBLP or a similar extreme religious group? Share anonymously below. We want to hear your story. Your voice matters here. We've got another deep dive coming later this week that you absolutely will not want to miss it. Until then, stay safe, keep asking the hard questions, and I will see you in the next video.